Hello, and welcome to episode 73 of Uncovering the Corners of the World podcast. I'm your host, Karina Kasmala. Using research and my personal experiences where I actually set foot in some of these places, I'll be describing some of the unknown attractions in both the U.S. and around the world. This week, we are back in North Carolina. North Carolina earned the nickname the Tar Heel State because of the workers that sold tar, pitch, and turpentine from the longleaf pine trees in the state. There are 10 national park sites in North Carolina, but this week we are visiting a national park that has been named the Place of Blue Smoke by the Cherokee Nation. If you ever travel to the Great Smokey Mountains National Park, you might notice a thick white fog that encompasses some of the Appalachian Mountains. This might have been the smoke that the Native Americans were referring to. Established in 1934, the Great Smokey Mountains National Park covers 552,427 acres across North Carolina and Tennessee. Within the forests of the national park, you might spot a few different animals and plants, as there are more than 10,000 species of plants and animals that live in the park, including 30 different species of salamanders. There are also more than 100 different types of trees that grow in the park. Even though the Great Smokey Mountains National Park has become the most visited national park in the United States since it opened, there are still a few hidden attractions that are inside the park. But before we enter the park, our first stop is in a small town where we learn about the art of fly fishing. Categorized as a sport and a hobby, the origins of fishing traces back to the Paleolithic period. It's a little tricky to pinpoint the exact origins of fly fishing. Some evidence points that some writings about fly fishing first appeared in the 2nd century modern-day Rome, where Marcus Valerius Martialis, a Roman writer and poet, referred to fly fishing in one of his poems. 100 years later, Roman author Claudius Aelianus published his book titled De Natura Animalium, which translates to On the Characteristics of Animals, where he talked about a method of fishing that was used by ancient Macedonians. Fly fishing is a technique of fishing that relies on using a lightweight fly and lines, unlike in other angling techniques. The lure is cast on top of the water and then reeled quickly as if trying to mimic a fly on water, whereas traditional fishing often relies on casting the bait, so it drops into the water. Located at 117 Island Street in Bryson City, North Carolina, is the Fly Fishing Museum of the Southern Appalachians. Inside the museum, there are biographies of legendary fly fishermen, influential reel makers, rod makers, fly tiers, and more, such as George W. Snyder from Kentucky, who developed the first American-made fishing reel in 1820, called the Kentucky Reel. Or Mark Cathy from North Carolina, who was an angler, local guide, and fly tier, known for the fishing technique, the dance of the dry fly, where he casted his long rod with a fly tied to the line and shake the rod, making it look like the fly was jumping across the surface of the water. There are also exhibits that show how rods evolved over time in the 19th and 20th centuries, and how fly fishing changed over time, along with the gear and gadgets that a typical fly fisherman would own. About 30 miles from the Fly Fishing Museum in the Great Smokey Mountains is the Whirloom Honey and Meadery, located at 257 Willie Colvin Road in Robbinsville, North Carolina. It's a store owned by Aaron Wurr and Jessica Wurr that opened in 2015, 3 years later after Aaron gifted his wife with honeybee hives as a Christmas present. The store sells raw, lightly filtered honey infused with different flavors like vanilla bean infused honey, cinnamon infused honey, hot pepper infused honey, and more. The store also sells honey-made products such as handmade lotions, soaps, and beeswax candles. They also sell mead, which is a honey wine. Besides purchasing locally made honey, visitors can take a guided tour of the Bee Observatory to see about 300 colonies of bees make honey while also learning the process of how honey is made. Our last attraction for this week is only accessible by boat or a very long hike. Located on the edge of the Great Smokey Mountains National Park in North Carolina is the lost town of Proctor. Proctor, located in Swain County, was once a booming lumber town on Hazel Creek with a population of 1,000 residents in the early 1900s. The town had its own dentist, cafe, barber shop, movie theater, and train depot. Its first Euro-American settlers were Moses and Patience Proctor. In 1941, the town was flooded after the construction of the Fontana Dam. However, when the lake's levels are low, you might be able to see the remains of a lumber mill, a cemetery, and a single home. The only road that led in and out of Hazel Creek was Highway 288, and that was flooded by the Fontana Dam. The 480-foot Fontana Dam is the tallest concrete dam east of the Rocky Mountains and produces hydroelectric power. For comparison, the Hoover Dam in Nevada measures 726.4 feet. The Fontana Dam was intended to power aluminum plants in Tennessee during World War II and was a Tennessee Valley Authority project, completed in 1944. There were plans and promises to build another road called Lakeview Drive that would connect Bryson City to Fontana, but only about 7 miles of the road were built before the project was abandoned due to environmental issues. These 7 miles end with a 1,200-foot tunnel. Even though there were debates about completing the road, in 2007 the U.S. Department of Interior settled on paying Swain County, where the road is located, $52 million as a consolation prize. In 2018, the government finally paid off the money that it owed. Today, there is a sign that commemorates the unfinished project that says, "Welcome to the Road to Nowhere, a Broken Promise, 1943," and ends with a question mark. Thank you for listening to this week's episode. If you're interested in learning more about fly fishing, or maybe want to see what equipment you need to fly fish, check out the website flyfishingmuseum.org. To learn more about heirloom honey, visit the website heirloom.com. More information about the Great Smokey Mountains National Park can be found on the National Park Service website. Lastly, if you want to read more about the lost city of Proctor, visit the website community.nrs.com. And if you want to read more about the history of the Road to Nowhere, check out the website greatsmokies.com. Have a great week.